This is the Thoughtful Travel Podcast. I'm your host, Amanda Kendall of the notaballerina.com travel blog. Every episode I'll share travel tales from several fellow travel lovers, and together we hope to entertain and inspire you, remind you of some of your own great travel experiences, and encourage you to hit the road again soon. Hello and welcome to episode 129 of the Thoughtful Travel Podcast. Today's topic is all about travel in developing countries, and I just want to put a little side note at the top here. I guess that makes it a top note, but I did kind of go away and think, what can I say in this title and throughout this episode instead of developing countries? And I went down a long rabbit hole of research and found lots of alternatives, but none that really seemed acceptable. And so I'm just going to refer to, the countries that we know of as having, higher levels of poverty and, need, greater development in the future to have, safe food, water, shelter, etc. As developing countries. But I appreciate that it's not the best term, although it's better than the third world. Anyway, that's my side note / top note. And today we'll be talking with three great guests who have really interesting stories to tell about their travel experiences in Haiti and Madagascar and India. So I just think it's a really good episode because of just really interesting stories and all about places I haven't been to and I'm really keen to know more about. But before we get to that, I have to introduce the new sponsor for the Thoughtful Travel Podcast this month, and it's a company I've worked with a while back as well, and it's an awesome company called Scrubber. So Scrubber makes products like the product I'm featuring today, which is the Scrubber wash bag. So I actually started using a Scrubber wash bag about more than 3 years ago, actually. I forget what year it is. It's 2019 now. So more than 3 years ago, I first knew of this company, which started up in Australia from the Australian Shark Tank show when they were successful in getting some funding. And the Scrubber wash bag is a very cool thing. I will leave a link in the show notes. In fact, to a blog post I wrote a few years ago reviewing this wash bag because I loved it then and still love it today. But basically it's kind of... it's a special bag that has these kind of nodules inside and a bit of non-slip stuff outside. So you can wash your clothes when you're traveling inside this bag, and the nodules are like that kind of old style washboard thing. So it washes them really well, really easily. Basically, I use mine a lot. I used to use just the sinks of places I was staying, but this is heaps better and much more hygienic, I think, especially some of the places I stay. And you throw your clothes in. It has a explanation of how much water to put in. I just use then like shower gel or whatever kind of soap thing I've got around. You could take, washing powder, rub it a bit. Like 1 or 2 minutes or even less sometimes works, and then you can rinse everything out in the bag as well and then hang it up, and it's super clean. And I use that all the time because I do like to travel really light and don't want to have to spend hours at a laundromat or something, and I'm too stingy to pay anyone to do my washing. So I love to do that just to wash a few items. You can actually fit quite a lot in, but that's what I use. So the Scrubber people have also been kind enough to offer us, Thoughtful Travel podcast listeners, a discount code. So if you head to the Scrubber website, which is at The Scrubber, and Scrubber is SCRUBBA, and you want to go to thescrubber.com and use the discount code Amanda15, and you can get a 15% discount off any product. They've got a few more products these days, and I'll tell you about them in the rest of the episodes this month. But now, back to travelling in developing countries, and my first guest today is Fiona Galloway. Fiona actually is currently living in Sri Lanka, and I chatted to her just before she moved there for a longish stint. And we chatted about some time back when she got to know a bit about Haiti.
I spent some time in Haiti, and that was back in about 1999 or 2000. And so though I'd travelled quite a lot already and to third world countries, Haiti took that to a whole new level. So it was life-changing in that I really firsthand experienced what poverty can actually look like.
Yeah, wow.
And living alongside that and walking a conscious path of living alongside that and being able to connect with people in a sort of even plane. And yeah, so that I'd say that was pretty life changing for me, and that I came away, and my partner at the time, we came away with just our minds blown with how poverty really looked on the ground to that scale. At that point, the UN was listing Haiti as a fifth world country.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, and we went back and lived in Florida again, and we just faced with absolute heightened consumerism, and we're just kind of going, what the, this is, the whole world is just really out of whack if this is the spectrum that we've got going on. So yeah, a greater appreciation of communities such as those in Haiti and what they have to endure every day to, bring water and food to their families and make a living. And it really did springboard me into my path now, and just really wanting to make a positive impact on my own travels, also with others that I travel with. So yeah.
What took you to Haiti in the first place?
I was working in the yachting industry out of North America and the Caribbean, or Caribbean, depending on where you come from. And we kind of were in a bit of a slow patch, and an opportunity came up to work alongside on a private sort of tender to Royal Caribbean Cruise Lines, but we were just private. We just did day trips out to a little island and took people out and around with all local staff and what have you. So it was all very random, and we lived, really, really basic, but I really value that experience because it's kind of the way I like to live now, like much more simplified since then. And we had intended to stay for a year, and I was going to get quite involved on that community level, but yeah, something happened with the person we were working for, and we decided it was in our best welfare to go.
Oh wow!
So
right.
we didn't stay, unfortunately. But it was pretty amazing.
Yeah.
I've wanted to get back there ever since, but from here it is such a long way to go.
Yes.
So one day, one day.
Yeah, it is far. Can you remember some of your first days there with this extreme poverty, and can you describe to me like what you saw and what you experienced and how you felt?
Yeah, poverty in, just living with things that living without things that we take for granted, So probably one of my strongest memories showing me that poverty doesn't have to mean unhappiness is, or living basically and simply doesn't have to mean unhappiness, is sort of entering the village of Labadee on the north coast for the first time, which was our nearest village, and connecting there with some locals and watching kids play with lids and sticks, and playing in the water and having the best time possible with their families and friends and communities, and they didn't have the latest of anything, going into homes and sharing meals and being given gifts of the likes of fish that would feed their family for 3 days, but not being able to say no because that would have been dishonourable, and just recognising the level of connection. It all comes back to connection, the level of connection and giving that they will offer regardless of where they are on that spectrum of wealth or poverty. And that was a real eye-opener. And probably one of my strongest experiences, which I just brings a big smile to my face and makes my heart kind of sing, is sitting on the ground in the back of all the houses, like the communal area with all the women, and they were making a community meal, and they're sitting there pounding all their spices in the big bowl, in their big mortar and pestle, and I was sitting there with them having the best go that I could. And they're all just looking at me laughing and smiling and trying to have a conversation with me, but of course I couldn't. And I remember just going, wow, just wow. Like, I'm in the dirt with these women. We're making a meal together. They don't care that I might be earning more money than they are, and they don't care that we can't actually speak the same language. We're still communicating. You know, we're still having an exchange and having an experience together, and that really stuck in my mind for, well, it still does now, and that was a long time past. So yeah.
Yeah, that's a wonderful experience. I think that that's so true. Often doing something together. I mean, I had a similar experience recently in Cambodia, cooking together, and you know, I was kind of being instructed, but we didn't have any common language, and so it was all by just gestures and stuff. But yeah, it's a very it's a lovely communal kind of way to experience a place, and you're all equal when you're doing something like that together.
Absolutely, putting food on the table together. And it all comes back to just that connection and community. And, you know, when we're talking about poverty or wealth and along that spectrum, perhaps, you know, we really lose that along the way to a large degree. And, it was a beautiful reminder to sit there in the dirt and realize that everything they needed was there. You know, they might have dollars in their pocket, but everything they needed was right there, and they were happy.
Yeah.
It was beautiful. So, yeah, less is more.
I can definitely relate to some of Fiona's experiences in Haiti compared to, you know, similar things I've experienced, for example, in Cambodia and Vietnam. And just having a connection despite having no common language, it's really definitely possible. And I also remember when Fiona mentioned about the kids playing just with, you know, lids and sticks and stuff. When I was in Cambodia in a village near Siem Reap, we spent some of the afternoon playing soccer with the local kids at a village there. And, you know, their soccer pitch could not be called a soccer pitch. It was just a bit of a clearing in, I don't know, just, you know, scrubland and trees and stuff. And, you know, there was like long grass with crazy prickles all through it. And you had to kind of jump across this muddy creek to get into it. And the goalposts were literally just made from a couple of like long branches stuck into the ground. But they had a ball, as did we. My son definitely did not care that it was not, you know, his regulation school soccer pitch. Who needs all the perfect stuff? It's easy to have fun no matter what you've got. So it's a good reminder, I think. Now my next guest today is Linda Schlenker, who I have chatted to a few times in the past, and she has a lot of experience in Africa and relatively recently has started to visit Madagascar. And that was really interesting to me to hear from Linda about how she found the situation in Madagascar.
Madagascar has had a pretty tough time politically. They had a coup in 2009, and I think since then the guy who's been the president, you know, a lot of people don't really like him, and he apparently took away free education and free healthcare. So basically, at the moment in Madagascar, there is no free healthcare. So if you can't pay to go to a doctor or pay in a hospital, you just do not get treatment.
Wow.
And you know, in Southern Africa, you see all the kids going to school. You know, the government pays for school. It's still basic. It's not like what we're lucky enough to get here, but they're still in school uniform. They go to school, they get some education. But in Madagascar, if you don't have enough money to get it, you don't get it. So you see lots of kids running around that should be in school, but they're not. They'll be out collecting firewood or doing something, you know, productive for the community because they're not going to school and they maybe never will go to school.
Wow.
And it's obviously, as it is in a lot of cultures, it's the girls that miss out the worst because the boys will be educated before them. So the whole flow and effect of this, which is a really horrible thing, I guess, that we saw in Madagascar, was that there is child prostitution. Apparently there's still, you know, child slavery and, you know, women sold into slavery. And some of that is being propagated by Europeans that go there. You know, we were speaking to a Dutch guy that lives there that started his own NGO, and he said, yeah, you know, it is possible in Madagascar that you can actually go and get a menu of, I'd like a male or female, I'd want them this age, I'd like them to be virgin, not a virgin, you know, and that was sort of a confronting thing because they seem like such happy people on the surface, you know, everything. Yes, they're poor, but they're getting on with it. But when you hear about things like that, it's like, wow, that's really not a great thing to hear about or to know that is happening there. But and especially when some of that could be stopped by just good politics and lack of corruption and good management of resources in that country.
Yeah, that's pretty distressing, isn't it? I guess for them, desperate horrible. Times call for desperate measures, but for us to witness that's really hard.
Yeah, and then but you can. On the other hand, it's like the yin and the yang of everything too. You just see what joy they get from little things too. Not just kids, adults as well. If they are not in, near a major town, they will come up and beg you to take their photo just so that they can look at it on the back of the camera. They just be swarmed, and it's just like their faces. They're so beautiful when they see it, and they laugh, and they're really fun and energetic and welcoming people. So you see all of that good side of things, even though they are extremely poor, and so poor, in fact. This is something else I've never seen before. And, Namibia and Botswana, you go through some pretty poor areas. But if you stop your car in a village, and if you've got like a leftover, say, even from a 350 ml to a 1.5 litre water bottle, if you put that out the window, the kids will almost fight each other for this plastic bottle because they just don't have money to buy things to carry water or anything. And I thought, oh my God, I've never seen a place where a plastic they'll grab and they'll run off. Like if they get it in their arm, because they know that other kids will take it from them, they just run home to mum or to dad.
Oh my gosh.
That's something also I had never seen. I thought, wow, that's really goes to show how tough and how poor they are in some of the areas there, in a lot of the areas.
It was interesting to hear about Linda's experiences with poverty in Madagascar. Actually, back in episode 80, I talked to Linda about what you can see and do travelling through Madagascar. So that's a good counterpoint if you want to go back and listen to episode 80. It's all about travels in Africa in general, and Linda chats about Madagascar there. But yeah, it's good to learn more. I think knowledge is power, don't they say? Anyway, my final guest today is Whitney Taylor. Now, I met Whitney in Fiji last year, on a trip with Hands on Journeys, a good friend of the Thoughtful Travel podcast and a previous sponsor. But prior to going to Fiji with Hands on Journeys, Whitney had actually also been on a trip to India, and that was a really confronting and really life-changing trip for her, and it was really interesting to hear her tales about India.
It was such a incredible trip. I think everyone comes back and says, you know what, oh my God, that was a great trip. Mm-hmm. Oh, I loved it so much. There were so many great things. It was so beautiful. But the trip to India I did was physically life-changing for me. And I don't mean that to sound I don't mean to sound silly about that, but it was actually physically life-changing for me. I met incredible women on the tour that had so many different quirks and perks to them. Some of them were bloggers, some of them were yogis, some of them, really helped to open my eyes up to how to experience the world through travel, as some of them they had been traveling for a long time. It was just this crazy experience that I don't think you would get in Europe or you would get in places like Fiji. This place was such a cultural shock and such a beautiful contrast between like stunning architecture and the devastating way that they live their lives through this quite bad problem that they have with poverty over there. And we spent 12 days on this tour, and we went we did the Golden Triangle. We started in Delhi, went straight from Delhi to Jaipur, from Jaipur to Agra, and then back to Delhi. And two of those places were project work days with the company.
Mm-hmm.
So we weren't going in building anything, but we were going in doing these incredible works that were helping the community, or helping a part of the community actually get income for the day.
Right. Yeah.
So one of the stories I have, which is, it was beautiful and moving, was we went to Jaipur, and we went into the slums of Jaipur, and we went to this little community, and this lovely married couple had set up a little mini school. And it's not really a school where they actually get a proper education. It's a school for the kids in the slums that can't afford to go to the proper government school, that they go here and they get taught for free.
Oh,
they get
wow.
taught English, they get taught different languages, they get taught math, they get taught a bunch of different things out of the kindness of these people. They have like 30, 40, 50 kids at times, teaching them, all the skills that they need, because they actually come from poverty, and their family has no money to send them to school. So we went there, and what Hands On Journeys did for the day was the tour paid for the ladies out of the slums to come and teach us how to cook
Cool.
a traditional Indian meal, which was amazing. We got to learn how to make roti and make all these, interesting meals for lunch. It was incredible. So we had this full-on incredible cooking day experience with these women who could barely speak any English. The kids were running around, we're dancing with them, playing, we're teaching them like a little bit of math, but mainly it was just, dancing around.
Oh, gorgeous.
It was a lot of fun. So what happened after that is they're like, oh, we really want to show you where we live. We really, really want to show you where we live. Like, come with us. So, okay. So we got in our little coach. We went down the road and we went to the actual area of the slums. And so you walk on in, and you would not go there if you were backpacking or if you're just a tourist off the street. It's not a place you go unless you're with people that are living in that area, from that area, and know the people in that community, because it was the first time I'd seen poverty myself. So you had it was almost sewer-like. There was dogs, there was pigs, there was just rubbish everywhere. It was worse than any Australian, rubbish tip that you would ever see, times 100.
Wow.
They had electricity pulled in from somewhere, had no idea where it was coming from. They had these brick-made little rooms. It was almost like a 3 by 3 meter room, and it would sleep a family of 12 on the concrete floor.
Gosh.
Yeah, it was so cool. It was such a cultural shock to see how they were. And the thing that actually shook me the most was these girls that were there, that were showing us there where they live. They were so unbelievably house proud, more house proud than anyone I've ever met.
Wow.
And they would sweep the floors. You'll take your shoes off. They would display a small amount of items on the wall that they owned, which looked like stuff from like broken plates from Vinnie's. And they were so humble and excited to show us where they lived.
That's amazing.
It was incredible.
They've
never seen anything different. They've never known different than that. And it's just like, wow, like my 1-bedroom apartment seems huge now. Like, oh my gosh, it's like the world, there's people out here in the world living like this.
Yeah. Amazing.
It was so humbling. It was so beautiful. It definitely wasn't for the faint-hearted, but it really does open your eyes to the world and how diverse people's lives are in different cultures, and it really makes you appreciate where you do come from, and it really does make you think about travel, what impact you're actually having when you go overseas. So you go overseas to see these places, if you can actually go with a company, that any type of company, do your research, that actually has set up some type of communication or set up some type of, cooking day that you learn, or some, sewing day, just anything, an experience inside like a cultural immersion. You're providing so many people these jobs, which is going to help, pull people out of poverty.
I think Whitney's experiences of India are similar to what mine will be one day when I finally get to visit. It's not a place I've ever felt particularly drawn to, but I've heard so many stories from people whose judgment I trust, and they tell me I have to go and experience it, so one day I will. In fact, I'm actually trying to put together a whole Thoughtful Travellers podcast episode about India, so watch this space. Or if you have a particularly interesting India story to share, let me know, and maybe I can include you. So that's it for episode 129 of the Thoughtful Travel podcast. If you have your own experiences of travelling in developing countries, I would love to hear about them in the Facebook group. So head over to Thoughtful Travellers on Facebook. There's a link in the show notes if you haven't joined yet. A very big thank you to our sponsor for today's episode and for this month, Scrubber. Don't forget you can use the discount code Amanda15 to get a 15% discount off any Scrubber product, including their very, very, very awesome wash bag, which I recommend after using for years. So it's a very hearty recommendation for sure. In the show notes, which you can find at notaballerina.com/129, I'll leave a link to Scrubber's website, which is thescrubber.com, SCRUBBA. I'm also going to leave a link to my own post about them, and also to my post which points you to the episode about travel in Africa, so you can hear more of Linda talking about Madagascar as well. Thank you very much to my three guests. First up, we had Fiona Galloway from Wild Awake Travel, and her website is wildawaketravel.com. Next, of course, Linda Schlenker from Self Drive Adventures, and she's from selfdriveadventures.com. And lastly, I chatted with Whitney Taylor. Whitney works a lot with Jito Connected, especially their Inspiring Greatness site. So if you go to jitoconnected.com, that's JITO connected.com/inspire. And don't forget to come along and be a part of the awesome chats we have in the Thoughtful Travellers Facebook group. Thank you so very much for listening. This has been another episode of the Thoughtful Travel podcast. Show notes and other information are at notaballerina.com/podcast. Join me again soon for another chat about why we travel. Bye for now.